I had just finished setting the last dinner plate around the maple table in my daughter's house in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I saw that look in Mason's eyes, the look he always got before bringing up his latest big plan. He sat there, fingers flying across his new laptop, grinning like a kid on the 4th of July. "Grandpa Henry, perfect timing," he called, turning the laptop toward me as I stepped out of the kitchen. My daughter Laura paused on her way past, a steaming bowl of mashed potatoes in her hands. "Go on, Mason. Show Grandpa what you've been working on." I glanced at the photos along the hallway. Laura's wedding in Savannah, my grandkids' high school graduations, years of Christmases and Thanksgiving dinners. 15 years of memories, and just as many years of checks written for emergencies, bills, and second chances. "This is it," Mason announced, his confidence radiating. "My startup's ready. The platform's live, we just need money for servers and office space." He pointed to the screen, full of colorful graphs and numbers that made my heart beat faster. $200,000. "I know you've always helped us. But this isn't just a loan, it's an investment in our future." I set down the last fork, my voice a bit lower than usual. "Mason, I've been helping you and your mom for 15 years. I'm tired of being the family bank." Laura's smile faded instantly. "Dad, this is our chance. If you're not part of this, maybe you shouldn't be part of our family anymore." Her words hit like an ice storm rolling off Lake Erie. My hand trembled, my fork clattering to the hardwood. "What did you just say?" I asked, more surprised than angry. "You heard me," she said, setting the bowl down hard on the counter. "If you can't help when we really need it, maybe you shouldn't stay here." Mason tried to calm her, but she pulled away. "We gave you a place after Mom died, Grandpa. We've been taking care of you for 5 years. And now you're turning your back on us?" 5 years. That's how long it had been since Helen, my wife of 42 years, passed away. Laura had insisted I move in after the funeral. "Family takes care of family," she'd said. Now those same words were being used against me. I didn't answer. I just went up the stairs to the small guest room I'd called mine since Helen's passing, closing the door quietly. On the nightstand sat framed photos. Laura at her senior prom, Laura holding baby Tyler, Christmas mornings full of laughter. Now they seemed like reminders of everything that had changed. When had my help turned from a gift into a requirement? When had gratitude been replaced by expectation? Through the walls I heard muffled arguing between Laura and Mason, but I just opened my old Navy file box. I'd kept every receipt, every statement, every transfer I'd ever made to help them. That night, for the first time in years, I sat at my desk and began to tally it all up, like evidence in a trial I never wanted. The receipts told a story I already knew but had never wanted to face in black and white. June 2011, Laura's wedding. I paid for the venue in Savannah, the photographer, the food, the band. $42,000 gone. Then the house. When Laura and Mason couldn't get a mortgage, I paid their down payment and stepped in for most of the monthly bills. 5 years of $1,500 payments. Their cars, their insurance, the medical bills when Mason's business flopped. Tyler's tuition, Anna's college fees, family vacations, and anniversary trips they never could afford but always needed. The calculator on my desk beeped quietly as I punched in the numbers. $230,000, then $278,000, $310,000, $345,000, $401,000. By the time I finished, the total sat like a weight in my chest. $433,000 in 15 years. Not loans, not investments. Just gone. I leaned back in the old chair, staring at the power of attorney form Laura had insisted I signed 3 years ago, after my knee replacement. "Just in case there's an emergency," she'd said. It gave her full access to my accounts. That paper went through my shredder in under a minute, the neat legal print turning into ribbons. I picked up my phone and called my bank downtown. This is Henry Porter. Cancel all automatic transfers to account ending in 6742. The banker on the line asked for a reason. I'm done being taken for granted, I said, and I meant it. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Friday morning, I drove across Charlotte and met with a realtor, a sharp fellow named Carl Jensen. Carl was a friend of an old Navy buddy of mine and didn't waste time with small talk. He showed me a simple, one-bedroom apartment overlooking a little park just outside uptown. Hardwood floors, bright windows, and best of all, nobody else's expectations hanging in the air. It's not much, Carl said, jingling the keys. But it's yours. It's available now, move-in ready. I didn't need to see any more. I'll take it, I said. An hour later, with a signed lease and keys in my pocket, I drove back to Laura's house, my house, really, for all those years. The driveway was empty. Laura was at the hospital working an early shift, and Mason was probably out at some cafe pitching his next big thing to anyone who'd listen. I went inside, moving quickly. The old family photo albums, mine. The folded American flag from my father's service, mine. My Navy medals, my wedding ring, Helen's locket. My leather recliner, the one Helen bought for my 70th birthday, I let them keep. They'd gotten used to it in their living room. The piano Laura took after Helen's funeral stayed as well. Let the grandkids play it someday, if they ever wanted to. At noon, the movers showed up, 3 strong young guys with a box truck that barely fit the narrow driveway. Everything with the blue stickers goes, I told them. Everything else stays. They worked fast. In less than 2 hours, my life was packed and loaded. Before I left, I wrote a note and sealed it in a plain white envelope, leaving it on the kitchen table. Laura and Mason. I've moved out. Keys are on the counter. All financial support has stopped. You wanted independence from my expectations, now you have it. Don't call me until you're ready to apologize. Dad. By the time they got home to find my note, I was already unpacking boxes in my new apartment, arranging photos and medals on the empty shelves. That evening, my phone rang. Laura's voice came sharp and frantic. Dad, what is this? You can't just leave. You can't just cut us off. I let her talk. Then I said, You told me I shouldn't expect to stay. So I'm not. You're being unreasonable. Your family. You can't just walk away like this. Please come back. We'll talk it out. I took a deep breath. We'll talk when you're ready to have a real conversation about respect, I said. I hung up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Monday morning, I walked into the local branch of First Charlotte Bank, carrying a manila folder with all my papers. The winter wind off the Catawba River cut through my coat, but inside, the place was all quiet music and marble floors. Mr. Porter, the banker said, shaking my hand. His name was James West, a sharp fellow in a blue suit. You wanted to review your accounts? We sat in his office, sun coming through the tall windows. I need to stop an automatic transfer, $200 a month to my daughter's mortgage. I told him. James frowned as he typed into his computer. That's a substantial commitment. Are you sure? He asked, looking up at me. Over 15 years, that's more than $430,000. I'm sure, I said, steady as stone. He whistled low when the numbers came up on his screen. Mr. Porter, you've given away nearly $500,000. Hearing it out loud settled something inside me. James printed the records, page after page of quiet generosity that had emptied my accounts over the years. I'll have the transfer stopped by the end of the day, he said. By lunchtime, I was at a lawyer's office, a fellow named Robert Collins, recommended by another old Navy friend. The receptionist squeezed me in when I mentioned asset protection and a family dispute. Robert listened as I explained, from Laura's harsh words to the endless emergencies. You've enabled them, he said. But that can be changed. Let's put your assets in a trust for your granddaughter Anna. She's the only one who ever calls just to talk. We signed papers, the notary's stamp loud as thunder in the quiet office. Walking back to my apartment, I felt lighter than I had in a decade. That evening, right at 7 o'clock, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole I saw Mason, clutching a bouquet of supermarket flowers, a peace offering, maybe, or another pitch. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Grandpa, can we talk? Laura feels awful. We just got caught up in the moment. He glanced around my small, tidy apartment, trying to hide his disappointment. It's nice, he lied. Very minimalist. I sat in my armchair. What's on your mind, Mason? He jumped straight into his pitch. I know things got heated, but this business is different. We just need $200,000 to get started. You'll get a big return, of course. I let him talk for 5 minutes, spinning dreams and numbers. Then I asked, When's the last time you called me just to say happy birthday, Mason? He blinked, caught off guard. My birthday's Valentine's Day. Easy to remember, yet you've forgotten for 12 years. You didn't visit me in the hospital after my surgery. Laura came once. Anna came twice. You sent a card. He bristled. What does that have to do with investing in our future? Everything. You only remember I exist when you need money. That's not family, Mason. That's dependency. His face changed, the mask dropping. Fine. You want the truth? Laura and I have carried this family since Grandma died. We give you purpose, dinners, holidays. You owe us. I stood, looking out the window at his truck in the loading zone. My purpose is living in peace. Not being anyone's ATM. He shot to his feet. You'll regret this. Family doesn't just walk away. I shook my head. I'm not walking away. I'm finally standing still. You're the ones always running after my wallet. He slammed the door on his way out, and I watched him through the blinds, phone already at his ear, probably calling Laura to tell her the old man had finally said no. For the first time in 15 years, I felt absolutely no guilt. Only relief. 2 days later, I was fixing myself a quiet breakfast, eggs, black coffee, toast, when the doorbell rang again. This time, it was Laura. She wore her softest blue sweater, makeup subtle, hair just so, the same way she used to dress up for Helen's Sunday dinners. She stood on the porch with a white bakery box and a hopeful smile. Dad, I brought your favorite apple pie. From Morrison's Bakery, just like Mom used to make. I opened the door and let her in, though I could tell she wasn't there just for a visit. She made herself comfortable on the couch, her eyes sweeping over my little apartment as if trying to measure how long I could last here before coming back to her house. Coffee? I asked, keeping things polite. I'd love some, she replied, settling in. As we went through the motions, brewing coffee, slicing the pie, getting plates and forks, Laura started with nostalgia. I've been thinking a lot about when you taught me to ride a bike. You ran beside me for 3 blocks, even though your back was out. You were always there for me, Dad. Every recital, every graduation, every holiday. Her voice quivered just enough to sound almost tearful. I poured her coffee, 1 cream, 1 sugar, the way she's taken it since she was 8. When I was in the hospital last year, you came once, I said quietly. Anna came twice. Tyler called every day. You sent flowers. She blinked, caught off guard by my memory. Dad, that's not fair. I was working. The kids are grown, Laura. Anna's 21. Tyler's 19. Who are you still raising? Her voice sharpened. We're doing everything we can to keep the house. If you just help this one time, Mason's business could. Maybe it's time you both found real work instead of relying on my savings as your second income. The tears vanished. Anger flashed across her face. I do work. I run the household. I support Mason's career. I take care of. She ran out of steam, slumping back, her speech exhausted before it even started. Mom would be heartbroken, she said finally, her voice low and bitter. This isn't the father who raised me. The father who raised you, I answered just as softly, is tired. Tired of financing the same mistakes. The same bad habits year after year. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. Fine. But when you're sitting here alone, wondering why your family never visits, remember this. She stormed out, leaving the pie untouched on my counter. I watched her go, her car pulling away from the curb without a glance back. The silence in my apartment felt different, less like loneliness, more like freedom. Later that week, I got a text from Tyler. Grandpa, can I come by Sunday? Mom and Dad are acting weird. At least one of them still wanted to see me for something other than a handout. Sunday afternoon, Tyler knocked, though he still had the spare key I'd given him. Hey, Grandpa, he said, slouching in with all the careless comfort of a young man who still felt at home in my presence. Jeans wrinkled, boots untied, old band shirt under his jacket. Coffee? I asked. Sure. He grinned, flopping onto the couch and stretching out as if he'd never left. I studied him as I waited for the coffee to brew, same stubborn jaw as his mother, but Helen's eyes, warm brown with golden flecks. So, I said, setting his mug down. What's going on? He shrugged, rolling his shoulders. Need a favor. $3,000. My credit card's out of control. When do you plan to pay it back? You're not working right now, Tyler. He shifted, embarrassed. I'll find something soon. Maybe at that new garage on Tryon Street. I'm good with engines, you know. I pulled out a business card I'd been saving. Frank Patterson, mechanic, $16 an hour, benefits after 90 days. Frank's looking for a helper. I said. You'd learn a trade. Honest work. Tyler frowned. I don't want to work for some stranger. I just need quick cash to clear my debt. Then I'll figure things out. I slid the card closer. This is a real chance. Skills, steady income, pride in what you do. He pushed it back. You've changed, Grandpa. You used to help. I remember you paid for my welding certification. And then I dropped out, yeah, but that was different. You had other opportunities. Like sleeping till noon. He bristled. You don't know how hard it is for my generation. Rent, gas, everything's so expensive. It's not like it was for you. What I know, I replied, voice steady, is that you're 19 and the only thing standing in your way is you. When he realized I wasn't budging, he stood up. Fine. Don't expect me to visit anymore. Don't expect me to care when you're old and lonely. I sipped my coffee unmoved. I'm already old, Tyler. And I'm learning to prefer lonely over being used. The door slammed hard behind him, rattling the pictures on the wall. I sat in the quiet, thinking how strange it was that peace often sounded just like silence. The very next night, my phone rang. Anna's name on the screen. Grandpa, you wouldn't believe the chaos at home. Mom's blaming you for everything. Dad's on the phone nonstop, talking about business loans. Tyler's sulking. It's a mess. I let out a slow breath. 15 years of automatic transfers and they can't go 2 weeks without me, I said. Anna sighed. Mom's picking up extra shifts at the hospital. She's working crazy hours, coming home angry and exhausted. They're all fighting. It's miserable. Part of me felt sorry for her, but another part, the part that had been giving and giving for decades, knew this was the price of letting reality finally set in. That Wednesday morning, I decided to take a walk through Freedom Park. The spring air in Charlotte was already warming up, the smell of magnolias mixing with fresh-cut grass. My phone buzzed again and again. Laura, Tyler, even Mason. I ignored every call, just listening to the breeze and the quiet sounds of geese by the lake. Freedom really did have a different feeling now. Maybe it was just the relief of no more crisis calls about overdue bills and emergencies that always seemed to require my checkbook. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 17 new messages. Dad, please call. The bank's threatening foreclosure. We need $8,400 right now. Mason's applying for loans, but his credit's shot. I'm working double shifts. Please, just this once. I deleted every message without a second thought. That evening, as I sat with dinner and the radio playing quietly, Anna called again. Grandpa, Mom collapsed at work. Exhaustion. She's okay, but it scared everyone. I know you're angry, but seeing her like this is hard. Your mother chose this path, Anna. I gave her boundaries. She refused them. Anna went quiet for a while. Tyler stopped by, asking for rent money. Mom yelled at him for half an hour. Maybe you're all starting to learn, I said gently. Through the kitchen window, the city lights flickered on across Charlotte, the skyline glowing against a dark blue sky. Somewhere out there, Laura was pushing herself to the edge, trying to maintain a life built on money that was no longer mine to give. Mason was learning that charm didn't cover mortgage payments, and Tyler was facing his first real consequences as an adult. I should have felt guilty, but honestly, I just felt lighter than I had in years. Late that night, I noticed movement on the street below my apartment window. The lights in the hallway flickered, then I heard a knock, first soft, then loud. I stayed back in the shadows, peeking through the peephole. There they were, Mason, Laura, Tyler, Anna, and two older folks I recognized from Laura's wedding, Mason's parents, Bill and Grace Taylor. Within a minute, they were knocking again, harder this time. Henry, open up. We need to talk, Bill called, voice full of the authority that comes from years of getting his way. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. Your son's been using me as a bank for 15 years, I said, my voice calm. That's not family duty. That's enabling a pattern of dependency. Grace chimed in, her tone high and sharp. You should be helping the younger generation get established. I help them establish a pattern of never solving their own problems, I said. Now I'm done. Laura stepped forward, mascara running. Dad, please. We could lose everything. I looked at her, feeling decades of love and sacrifice press against my chest. Then maybe you shouldn't have told me not to expect to stay much longer. Bill bristled. You're being selfish. At your age, you should think about your legacy. My legacy is teaching responsibility, not funding irresponsibility. Tyler mumbled from the back. You're just being mean, Grandpa. You never used to be like this. And then Anna, her voice clear and steady, cut through the noise. When did any of you visit him in the hospital? When did you remember his birthday without being told? You're all here for one reason, his money. The hallway erupted, Laura crying, Bill lecturing, Mason demanding, Grace guilt-tripping, Tyler whining. Anna stayed silent, watching me with a calm, knowing look. Enough, I said, and the noise stopped. I've given Laura and Mason over $430,000 in 15 years. Weddings, houses, emergencies, everything. In return, I got forgotten birthdays and endless demands for more. Don't contact me until you're ready to apologize. Anna, you're always welcome. The rest of you, learn to solve your own problems. I closed the door. On the other side, the argument started all over again. I waited by the window. 20 minutes later, they trudged back to their cars. Anna looked up and waved before heading home. The others piled into Bill's truck, voices echoing in the parking lot. My apartment felt quieter than ever, but for once, the quiet was something I'd chosen. 2 weeks passed with barely a word. Then Robert Collins, my lawyer, called. We're making Anna the sole beneficiary of your trust, he said, sliding papers across the polished conference table in his office. No one else can touch a dime, no matter how they try. I signed, each notary stamp echoing like a lock turning on a steel door. Later that week, I met Nancy Carter, a realtor recommended by my neighbor. She showed me a place outside Charlotte, a little lakeside cottage, white paint and blue shutters, just enough space for one old man and his memories. As soon as I saw it, I knew. This is it, I said. Full asking price, no conditions. 3 days later, it was mine. That Friday night, I drove out to the local Veterans Hall for their monthly dinner. I hadn't been in years, too busy solving someone else's latest crisis. But that evening, surrounded by old Navy buddies and the simple comfort of friendly faces, I remembered how good it felt to be just Henry again, not someone's bank or last resort. I filled my plate and found a seat by the window. "Haven't seen you around in a while, Henry," said a warm, steady voice beside me. It was Mary Adams, silver hair, kind eyes, a gentle presence. She'd lost her husband 6 years ago and found purpose volunteering at the hall. "You look lighter these days," she observed, her gaze soft but sharp. "Learning to live for myself," I replied. "Smart," she said with a little smile. "Family can drain you dry if you let them." We talked until the lights dimmed and the staff started stacking chairs. Mary had been a teacher for nearly 40 years. Her kids lived across the country. She managed her life quietly and without drama, something I realized I hadn't had in decades. As we said goodnight, I heard myself asking, "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" Mary smiled. "I'd like that very much." 3 weeks later, I'd moved into the lakeside cottage. Mornings were coffee on the back deck, evenings watching the sun sink over the water. And on Saturdays, Mary would come by with fresh baked cookies and stories from her garden. By the time July rolled in, I had settled into my new life by the lake. Most mornings, Mary and I sat outside with our coffee, watching ducks glide past the dock or swapping stories about our grandkids. For the first time in years, my days were mine. No frantic calls, no financial emergencies, no sense of being used up and forgotten. Then, one muggy afternoon, Anna called with news that stopped me mid-step. "Grandpa, Mom filed for divorce." She finally realized Dad's business was nothing but empty promises. I glanced at Mary, who was slicing peaches at the kitchen counter. She caught my look, raised an eyebrow, but just kept working. I didn't need to explain. Dad moved back in with his parents. Mom's working 2 jobs to get by. Tyler? He finally took that job at Frank Patterson's garage, full-time. Says he wants to talk to you. That evening, my phone rang again. "Grandpa, I wanted to say sorry." "And thank you? If you'd just given me that $3,000, I'd have wasted it. Frank says I've got real skill. I'm saving up for my own apartment now." Mary smiled and squeezed my hand. "Sounds like you saved that boy from becoming his father." I thought for a while before answering. "Tough love is still love, Mary." A week before Thanksgiving, a silver sedan pulled up in my driveway. I knew right away it was Laura, her posture tense as she stepped out, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. She wore clothes I remembered from years ago, not new but carefully pressed. When she reached the porch, I opened the door but didn't step aside. "Dad," her voice caught. "I lost the apartment. The landlord evicted me. I'm at a motel, but I can't afford it much longer." I nodded. "I'm sorry to hear that." She looked at me, desperate for hope. "Please. Just enough for first month's rent and a security deposit." $5,000, Dad. "I swear I'll pay it back." I felt Mary step into the hallway behind me. She didn't say a word, just stood there quietly, a steady anchor. I took a deep breath. "Laura, I love you. But help without responsibility isn't help at all." She flinched like I'd struck her, then stormed past me, scanning the cottage, the cozy kitchen, the old family photos, the lake out back. "This is what you chose over your own daughter." A cottage, peace and quiet, while I'm out on the street. I chose self-respect, Laura. And I chose to stop enabling the same mistakes over and over. Mary stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. Laura, your father has helped you for 15 years. Maybe it's time to help yourself. Laura turned on her, sharp and defensive. Who are you to judge? Mary just smiled. I'm someone who learned to stand on my own after my husband died. You can too. Tears filled Laura's eyes, but this time they seemed real, less about manipulation and more about fear. I don't know how to do this alone, Dad. I never had to. You're almost 50. Laura. It's time, I said quietly. Just then, Anna's car pulled up. She got out with a pumpkin pie in her hands, barely glancing at her mother as they passed on the walkway. Inside, Anna put the pie on the counter. Mom asked me to convince you to help her, she said softly. I told her you've already done more than enough. Maybe losing everything will finally teach her what most people already know. A while later, Tyler arrived carrying a bag of dinner rolls and photos of his tiny new apartment. He looked proud, the kind of pride you can't buy for someone else. I ran into Mom on the road, he said, setting down the rolls. She looked upset. Mary smiled from the kitchen. Your mother is learning some hard lessons about responsibility. Tyler grinned. About time. That night we sat around the old oak table, me, Mary, Anna, and Tyler. 4 people bound together by respect, not obligation. The turkey was perfect. Conversation was easy, the laughter real. My phone buzzed once during dessert. Laura's name lit up the screen. I looked around at the family that valued my company instead of my checkbook, and then turned my phone off. More pie? I asked. Outside, the water reflected the gold and orange of the sunset, and inside, the air felt warmer than money ever could buy. December came, bringing snow and silence from Laura. I wasn't sure if she was giving me space, or if she'd simply run out of ways to ask for help. I didn't chase her. Life at the cottage had its own rhythm. Mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons reading by the wood stove, evenings with Mary playing cards or listening to old jazz records. Neighbors started calling Mary the lady of the house, though she kept her own place in town. One Friday over dinner, Mary looked across the table. Have you thought about Christmas plans? I was going to invite Anna and Tyler. Just the 3 of us. 4 if you'd like to join? She smiled. I'd like that very much. On Christmas Eve, Anna called. Grandpa, Mom's staying at a friend's. She's different, quieter, less angry. She asked me for money. I told her no. That was the first time I realized the lesson finally got through. Good, I said. It's not our job to save her from her own choices. Christmas Day was the first real holiday in years. Anna brought a casserole. Tyler brought a toolbox, fixed a stubborn door hinge. Mary brought a pecan pie. We traded small gifts, ate, laughed, and, most importantly, nobody asked for money. After dinner, Tyler pulled me aside. I'm saving for a down payment, Grandpa. Frank's teaching me about budgeting. I never thought I'd care about that, but it feels good to be in control. I clapped his shoulder. That's independence, Tyler. Control over your own life. January was quiet, snow piling high on the deck, the lake frozen into white stillness. Mary and I slipped into a comfortable routine, cooking together, playing chess, taking slow walks bundled in so many layers we looked like 2 old bears shuffling down the road. Some nights, we'd light a fire and listen to music, the world outside falling away. For the first time in decades, I woke up each morning without a knot of worry in my stomach. One evening, Mary glanced at me over her mug of cocoa. You've changed since I met you, Henry. I chuckled. How so? You don't flinch when the phone rings anymore. You don't look so tired. You've finally stopped carrying everyone else's burdens. I nodded. She was right. The old tension that had followed me for years, wondering when the next crisis would arrive, was gone. In February, a letter showed up in my mailbox, handwritten in Laura's careful script. "Dad, I'm sorry for the things I said. I didn't realize how much I was relying on you instead of myself. I'm trying to make it on my own now. It's harder than I thought, but I'm learning. I hope maybe we can talk when you're ready. Laura." I read it twice, then left it on my desk. It wasn't an apology that fixed everything, but it was a start, a crack in the wall she'd built between herself and the real world. Mary found me looking out at the frozen lake. "From Laura?" she asked. I nodded. "Are you going to answer?" "Not yet," I said quietly. "But I'm willing to believe she might mean it someday." By March, the ice began to break up. Anna called to say she'd gotten a promotion. Tyler sent me a photo of his first truck, bought with his own money. Mary began to plan a road trip for the spring. For the first time in years, my life was full of things I wanted to do, not things I was obligated to solve for someone else. April arrived with the scent of thawing earth and geese returning to the water. One morning, as I trimmed back branches along the shore, Mary came out with the phone in her hand. "It's Laura. She's calling, not texting." I took the phone, hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Laura." Her voice was quiet. "Dad? I wanted to tell you, I found a small apartment. It's not much, but it's mine. I paid the deposit myself. No loans, no help." I smiled, looking out over the lake. "That's good to hear, Laura." There was a pause. "I know you don't owe me anything, but I'd like to come by sometime. Not to ask for money. Just to see you." I watched Mary kneeling in the garden, her silver hair shining in the sun. "I'll think about it," I said, and I meant it. 2 weeks later, Anna and Tyler came for Sunday lunch. Tyler brought steaks to grill. Anna brought a bottle of wine and a bag of warm bread. After we ate, Tyler leaned back in his chair. "Frank says I'm getting promoted to lead mechanic next month. I'll have my own work bay. It feels like a real future." I smiled. "Pride in your work pays dividends no bank can match." Anna grinned. "I started an emergency fund, Grandpa. I'm learning from your stories not to rely on anyone else's wallet." It hit me then. Whatever happened with Laura, the real legacy wasn't money, it was in these two young people, learning to stand on their own feet. In May, Mary and I finally took that road trip we dreamed about all winter. We drove through the mountains, stopping at small-town diners and lakeside motels, never in a hurry. One afternoon, as we watched the sunset over a quiet stretch of water, Mary asked, "Do you ever think about just selling the cottage and traveling full-time?" I laughed. "Not yet. I like having a place to come back to. But maybe longer trips now and then." She squeezed my hand, and I realized how different this was from any relationship I'd ever known. Nothing owed, nothing expected, just two people choosing to share their time. When we got home, there was another letter from Laura. "Dad, I'm still in my apartment. I'm working 2 jobs and paid every bill on time. I even sold some old jewelry to clear my credit card. I'm trying. I miss you." This time, I sat down with a pen and paper and wrote back. "Laura, I'm glad to hear you're standing on your own. That's all I ever wanted for you. I'm willing to meet for coffee, just coffee, so we can talk. But understand, my boundaries remain. Dad." I sealed the envelope and mailed it without any fear or guilt for the first time in years. On the first Saturday of June, I sat on the deck with Mary, watching 2 sailboats drift by. Anna was bringing her boyfriend by for dinner, and Tyler had promised to help me fix the gutters the next weekend. My phone lay silent and face down on the table. Mary looked at me. "You look content." "I am," I said. "It took most of my life to figure it out, but I finally learned, love isn't proven by what you give away. It's what you protect, and who you choose to share it with." She reached over and squeezed my hand. Out on the water, the wind caught the sails, and I realized, for the first time in years, I was steering my own course, and nobody else's hands were on the wheel. June gave way to a soft, green summer. Anna's visits became a regular comfort. Tyler, now busy with work and saving for his own place, still managed to stop by most weekends, toolbox in hand. Mary and I spent long evenings on the porch, sharing slices of pie or simply watching fireflies rise from the tall grass by the lakeshore. Life felt easy, and I held on to that peace like something precious. When Laura and I finally met for coffee, it was at a quiet cafe on the edge of the city. She looked different, older, certainly, but also more self-contained. There was a new steadiness in the way she held herself. She hugged me, awkward at first, then sat across from me, nervously stirring her coffee. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then Laura said, "Dad, I never thought I'd have to learn everything from scratch at my age. Paying rent, budgeting, even cooking for myself. But I'm doing it. I'm not angry anymore. I just wanted you to know I'm okay." I nodded, feeling both pride and sadness. "I always knew you could do it, Laura. It was never about the money. It was about believing you could stand on your own." She smiled, shy but genuine. "I used to resent you for cutting me off. But now, I'm grateful. I'm not sure I'd ever have learned what I needed if you hadn't." We talked for over an hour, about Anna's job, Tyler's progress, about Helen and old family memories. Not once did she mention money or ask for help. When we finally hugged goodbye, it felt like a true new beginning, not just a truce. Summer rolled on. Mary and I drove to the mountains for a week in July, taking scenic roads, stopping for ice cream at roadside stands. We laughed like old friends and moved through the world without rush or regret. Back at the cottage, the lake shimmered under endless blue skies. I felt every day like a gift, a chance to enjoy what I'd worked for, not just hand it over. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think back on all those years of helping Laura and Mason, all the times I'd said yes out of guilt or habit. I realized, finally, that love had never been about writing checks or bailing people out of trouble. Love was sometimes tough, sometimes patient, and sometimes it meant letting go so others could find their own way. One Sunday afternoon in August, Tyler and Anna arrived together, each with news. Tyler tossed his new apartment keys on the table, grinning. "Grandpa, I finally did it. First place all my own. And I bought it with money I earned, not a cent of debt." Anna chimed in. "And I got accepted to grad school, full scholarship. I never would have even applied if you hadn't shown me what real independence looks like." We celebrated with homemade lemonade on the deck. Mary took a picture of the three of us, and as I looked at their proud, happy faces, I knew that everything I'd been through had been worth it. As fall crept closer, the air grew crisp and the leaves turned red and gold. Laura called now and then, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to share her own small victories, a raise at work, a new friendship, a recipe she'd learned. She was still learning, still struggling at times, but she was doing it on her own. Thanksgiving came around again, and this year, the table at the cottage was full. Anna brought her boyfriend, Tyler brought his fiancée, and even Laura accepted the invitation. There was laughter, stories, and a sense of ease I hadn't felt in years. When we held hands to say grace, I looked around and felt a quiet gratitude for what we'd all become, a family, finally built on respect. After dessert, as the others cleared the table, Laura lingered by the window. "Dad," she said, her voice steady, "I know we lost a lot of time. But I hope someday you'll be as proud of me as you are of Anna and Tyler." I reached out and hugged her. "Laura, I've always been proud. I just needed you to see it for yourself." As the night wore on, Anna played the old piano, her fingers stumbling at first, then finding the melody. Tyler laughed with Mary over stories from the garage. I stepped outside onto the porch, breathing in the chilly air, listening to the quiet sounds of family. I thought of Helen, of all the sacrifices and hard choices we'd made for our kids, and felt a deep, abiding peace. For the first time, I knew that the best gift I'd ever given my family was the chance for them to grow strong on their own, to love without strings attached. The next morning, Mary and I sat on the porch with our coffee, watching the lake shimmer in the early light. She squeezed my hand and said, "You did good, Henry. You gave them what they needed, not just what they wanted." I smiled. And I finally learned to give myself the same. As summer faded to fall, and fall to winter, I realized I wasn't afraid of growing old anymore. I had built a life that was finally mine, a legacy not of money, but of strength, kindness, and hard-won peace. And in the quiet, with the wind rustling through the pines and the water sparkling in the sun, I felt truly at home, no longer anyone's bank or burden, just a man who had finally learned to live for himself.